Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 3rd overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. But before we get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the 3rd overall spot. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been asking for me to do some best ball drafts over on Underdog, and we are going to be doing those live as the offseason goes along. So the draft starts here with Christian McCaffrey, followed by CeeDee Lamb. Pretty typical to be the 1-2 punch at the start of drafts. While Christian McCaffrey might potentially get hit by the 619 Rey Mysterio of the Madden curse, I don't really buy too much into that. I still do believe that Christian McCaffrey should be the 101, and to many people, CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver 1. Now, my wide receiver 1 is going to be Tyreek Hill. Now, I think if Tyreek Hill did not end up getting hurt last season up against the Tennessee Titans, and he did not have to play the rest of the season injured, if he didn't have to miss that one game, I really do believe that he would have eclipsed over 2,000 receiving yards last season. And even if he didn't do that, I think he would have ended up as the wide receiver number 1. I do think that the Miami Dolphins are going to look to maybe have Jalen Waddle have a better season than last year. I think Jalen Waddle is a little bit underrated in fantasy football drafts right now, but when push comes to shove, we know that Tyreek Hill is going to get the ball jammed down his throat by Tua Tagovailoa. So I think Tyreek Hill, to me, is a great pick at the 103. This guy has weak winning upside any given week. This guy can drop his nuts into the mouth of the defense, score 25, even 30 fantasy points in a PPR league. I am so excited about Tyreek Hill this season, and I believe that he will finish as the wide receiver number 1, just like I think he would have finished last year had he have not gotten hurt. So after Tyreek Hill, we see Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. The second round opens with Drake London, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chris Olave, Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman, and wiki DJ Moore. Now, we have seen in these early mock drafts for the 2024 fantasy football season that the wide receiver position is dominating 50 Shades of Grey style in the first 2 rounds, right? In the first round, only 3 running backs selected: Bijan, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey. I think in a majority of more normal leagues, right? Your league with your buddies from college, your league with your friends from high school, your friends from work, I don't think just 3 running backs are going to come off in the first round. I think it's going to be closer to 5, 6, maybe in some leagues, even 7. Now, long gone are the days where the running back position is just going to get smashed early and often. I think even the more casual players are picking up on the idea that we want to be drafting wide receivers more early on. But even so, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs off the board through the first 21 picks of the draft. I think in a lot of leagues, you're going to be seeing more running backs than this come off the board. Now, if you are in a sharper league or if you're drafting over on Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description, this is how drafts may end up going. But based upon how I know the running backs fall in these drafts, and the running backs that I like Derrick Henry ranked as the running back 13, Jacobs ranked as the running back 12, Mixon as the running back 16, I feel confident in waiting. So I'm going to go ahead and more than likely draft a wide receiver here. Now, Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta, those are 2 tight ends that I've really been eyeing all offseason, and it's because you no longer have to draft them in the first or even the second round. When things swing back to us in the 3rd round, I might end up selecting one of them, but here we are going to go wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk. I talked about Brandon Ayuk in my video yesterday about 5 wide receivers that I just can't stop drafting. If you haven't watched that already, make sure you check it out. And while I am someone that is very pessimistic on Deebo Samuel, I saw Brandon Ayuk's efficiency stats last year, and they fly off the page. This guy is downright incredible. He is always open like a fucking 7-Eleven, And I believe that even with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey there, Brandon Ayuk will be a very consistent piece in this offense. And just like Tyreek Hill, he has those huge games in him because of the offense that he is in. Now, obviously, Tyreek Hill more than likely will have more 25-plus point games than Brandon Ayuk, right? Brandon Ayuk isn't this super fast motherfucker like Tyreek Hill, right? Who you see him for 1 second, and then he's gone. It's like SpongeBob, where he's like, you want to see me run around the world? You want to see me do it again type deal, right? That's not the type of player that Brandon Ayuk is, but I do think in the 49ers offense with Kyle Shanahan, the upside there is incredible. So starting the draft, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk feels chef's kiss, magnifique. Now, what I will tell you is if we do not draft a running back here after Ayuk, we see Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, and Josh Allen. I know for sure in the 4th round, the running backs are going to be a lot more suspect. Now, there's going to be running backs that I like that come back to us, but they're probably running backs that I'm not the most comfortable drafting inside of the 4th round. So for me, here, it is very clear it is either going to be a running back or it is going to be Sam Laporta. I have Sam Laporta as the tight end 1. If you want to argue for Travis Kelce over him, I don't think that's even worth much of an argument because they're both really fucking good. I don't think you would have them in 2 different tiers by any means. To me, it is Laporta, Kelce, and McBride all in that upper echelon tier. And honestly, you might want to just have Laporta and Kelce in that tight end 1 tier. But here we are going to go running back. Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Devin A. Chain, Josh Jacobs, all on the board here. This is kind of a toss-up between Pacheco, Jacobs, and A-Chain for me. Devin A-Chain is much more of the boom or bust player because I do think there are going to be games where Raheem Mostert has the defense in a figure 4 and Devin A-Chain is kind of not getting as many touches and isn't as good, but I do think this year we see them push more into Devin A-Chain and kind of stiff-arm Mostert out just a little bit. But we already have Tyreek Hill, and while I love Devin A-Chain, I talked about him in the breakout running backs video a couple days ago, I'm going to go elsewhere because we already have Tyreek Hill, and I don't think that in a league like this where we're only starting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, I think having 2 guys on the Dolphins, while it's probably one of the few offenses where you could actually do it, I would rather just turn the other cheek and go a different way. So we're going to go with Isaiah Pacheco this time. I think come late August, early September, when you guys are doing your fantasy football drafts, Isaiah Pacheco will get steamed up much higher in drafts. Right now, coming off the board is the RB10. Wouldn't shock me if he was like a top 8, maybe even a top 6 running back off the board. He started to really put things together later in the season when they started to involve him a lot more in the receiving game. No Jerick McKinnon more than likely in 2024. We saw them utilize Pacheco heavily in the NFL playoffs as well on their path to winning another Super Bowl. They might end up fucking 3-peating again, which will make me want to jump off of my roof. But at the end of the day, Isaiah Pacheco, one of the most loaded offenses in the National Football League with the best quarterback in the NFL. Isaiah Pacheco is going to do great things yet again. You can have that debate between the other players, but this time I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco, and I would suggest that if you guys are doing a bunch of different drafts, say that you are the number 3 overall pick in multiple drafts, right, and you come back to the 3rd pick, even if I took Tyreek Hill, some of the times I'd be taking A-Chain, some of the times I'd be taking Josh Jacobs. So after Pacheco, Sam Laporta, Jalen Hurts, Devin 2 Chains, Jalen waddled away, waddle, Mike Evans, Deebo, Samuel, Malik Neighbors, Devontae Smith, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce, Josh Jacobs, Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Pat Mahomes, Mark Andrews, James Cook, Amari Cooper, and Rachaad with 2 A's White. So honestly, not as many running backs came off the board as I thought they would. But still, your running back 1 being Alvin Kamara, who I do kind of like in a league where you're only starting 2 receivers and 1 flex. To me, that's kind of a stretch, even though I do like Alvin Kamara. So the question here is, do we want to go with Kamara or do we want to go with Trey McBride? Now, if I don't go with McBride here, I think more than likely he goes to the first team, or he could even go here to the team that just doesn't have a tight end either. So it's very likely that by the time we get to pick again, he is gone. Now, can we accept that or can we not accept that is the question. I think if I don't take a tight end with either of these picks, I'm probably falling down to the range of a guy like Kyle Pitts or Jake Ferguson, which I am fine with. So I think we are going to go with either a running back or receiver here. I like CJ Stroud a lot this season. I think he's a very safe pick, kind of like wrapping a Trojan over your fantasy team. But in the 4th round, do I really want to do that when like Mahomes just came off the board 5 picks ago? So I think we're just going to go with a wide receiver or running back here. Kamara, I like. It does feel kind of gross, though, to have to draft him in the 4th round. And while it seems like a lot of people are super scared of Alvin Kamara, I get he's getting older, but the targets are going to be there, regardless of if they try to push up Kendre Miller to use him more. They're going to force feed the rock to this man. He could get 5, 6, 7, 8. There were multiple games where he got 14 fucking targets last season. Derek Carr is a check down merchant. Does it feel the best to draft Alvin Kamara in the 4th round? Not necessarily, because I'd rather get him in the 5th round. But if I'm being honest with you, this team probably could take him. This team's not going to take him because they already have 3 running backs. But I'm just going to get him because I think there is, like, while I like Montgomery and Ramondre Stevenson, like, I think Alvin Kamara just has a little bit more upside than those guys. Like, Kamara could literally be a top 3 running back even at his elder age at this point. Shout out to Gandalf the Grey. So we're going with Alvin Kamara here. After we went with Alvin Kamara, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Kenneth Walker, I think that Alvin Kamara would have came off at this pick. So look at us being sharpest knife in the cupboard here and taking Alvin Kamara before he got stolen by the rat bastard computer. So we're back up on the clock here. And man, oh man. Man, oh man, is this interesting. Because I didn't really think Trey McBride would fall back to us. I am a huge fan of Zay Flowers. But in a league like this, again, when you're not having to start 3 receivers or 2 receivers and 2 flexes, so 4 receivers basically at all times, I think that does make me lean closer to wanting to go ahead and get Trey McBride. I get that they drafted Maserati Marvin Harrison Jr., and that guy is going to be sucking in targets with efficiency. He's going to be sucking like his name was Riley Reed, but I do think that Trey McBride is still going to be in to get a ton of targets. Yet again, Kyler Murray loves Mr. Trey McBride, and I have a lot of confidence in him. I feel like I really like Dalton Kincaid. I really like Kyle Pitts, but I think Kincaid and McBride are kind of on the same in terms of safety. Pitts, I always like Pitts, and then he always ends up just bending you directly over a table. This year, I think things will be different, though, with Kirko Chains, Kirk Thuggins, but I feel pretty confident in Trey McBride, and guess what? If we didn't take Trey McBride, a bunch of other tight ends came out the board. So after McBride, Dak Prescott, Aaron Jones, Zay Flower, Christian Kirk, Ramondre Stevenson, Dave Montgomery, Najee Harris, Tank Dell, Zamir White, Anthony Richardson, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, CJ Stroud, Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Evan Ingram, James Conner, and Rashee Rice. I am as much of a Dak fan, as everyone else, or as most people, right? A lot of people shit all over Dak, right? They love to make fun of Dak Prescott because he chokes on some fat hog in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, in the regular season, this guy is amazing. The problem is, how do you draft Dak Prescott ahead of CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson? Even if you are as high on Dak Prescott as possible, I just don't see how you can do that. Taking Dak in the 5th round is just downright diabolical. Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Sam Laporta, Rachaad White, Dak Prescott, Rashee Rice. I don't even hate the team, but like Rashee Rice in the 6th round, like while I like Rashee Rice, like with this suspension, I'm even higher on Rashee Rice than most people. I'm not taking him in the 6th fucking round. Are you serious? So we are back up. Actually, maybe I would, but I would want to know how the length of the suspension before I did it. But I do think he will be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. So that's kind of my thoughts on him. I talked about him in the wide receivers I can't stop drafting video because I have really been drafting him a lot more in underdog drafts. So we're back up on the clock here. Joe Shiesty, best player available. Our team is Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, and Trey McBride. If you guys have been enjoying today's video thus far, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. If you are new, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video. So looking around us, this team has a quarterback, this team doesn't. So more than likely we'll be able to get either Joe Burrow or Kyler Murray, unless for some unforeseen reason the computer drafts 2 quarterbacks here, which would make no sense. I would prefer, I mean, it's close. I like both of them. So I'd be fine with either Kyler or Joe Burrow. So I think we're going to go wide receiver. Now, a player that I was initially very pessimistic of that I've started to like a lot more is George Pickens. Now, there was a report today that came out that they're going to try to get George Pickens more in the slot. George Pickens normally is an outside type of a guy, right, with Deontay Johnson as the slottiest man alive, but Deontay Johnson got his ass shipped off to Carolina, and now we're to see George Pickens more in the slot, which is something that we saw him do in his days at college. Now, George Pickens has been about as boom or bust as it gets, right? 3 points, then 18 points, 7, 2, 20, 10, 8, fucking negative 0.1, 4, 3, 5, 8, 1, 4, 31, 13.3. Now, I am not going to sit here and fondle the balls like a fucking fushigi of Russell Wilson, but what I will tell you is that I do think this will be the best quarterback play George Pickens has ever seen, and George Pickens' biggest rival, his arch nemesis in the offense, Deontay Johnson, who was taking a lot of targets, is now gone. So we're going to go ahead and draft George Pickens here. The more I have thought about it, the more I started to like Mr. George Pickens. So after George Pickens, Tajay Spears. I love Tajay Spears, but in the 6th round, PU, Joe Burrow, Terry McLaurin, and Calvin Ridley. So looking at the teams so far, 1, 2, 3 other teams besides myself. So 4 teams don't have a quarterback. By the time we pick again, I think some more quarterbacks will be gone. So we are going to draft Kyler Murray. We're going to get that stack of Kyler to Trey McBride. Now, do I think that stacking is essential in a redraft 12-team league? No. It is essential in best ball. It is not essential in redraft, but it is that added extra bonus. Now, obviously, if Kyler Murray goes out there and he shits down his pant leg, guess what? Trey McBride's also probably going to bust. But if Kyler Murray hits, there's a good chance Trey McBride also has a pretty decent showing, or even a huge showing. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Kyler Murray here. I think he's being slept upon a little bit. And when he was healthy last season, he was balling out. And now he has a elite wide receiver 1, in my opinion, in Marvin Harrison Jr. Nick, you've never even seen Marvin Harrison Jr. play. Why are you riding his jock like that? I really do think he is a phenomenal player. I love the tape, and I think that he is going to be able to produce instantly at the NFL level. Now, you might have noticed we have already drafted our quarterback and our tight end. I don't think that you need to do that. You can go ahead and start filling out your bench before you go back to the quarterback or the tight end position, but based upon how this draft fell, that's why we already have a quarterback and tight end and a full roster through 7 picks. After, went with Kyler, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet, Big Cock Brock Purdy, Jalen Warren, Hollywood Brown, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Daniels, Zach Moss, Tony Pollard, Javonte Williams, Devin Singletary, Jaden Riley Reed, Chris Godwin, Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, David Njoku, and Jerome Ford F-150. So our running back 3 on this squad is going to be a little bit gross, but we are going to have a thought exercise right now. So first, we're going to look at the teams around us. So 3 running backs for each squad. Very likely one of these picks will be a running back, so I think we're going to go running back with this pick. Now, on paper, the safest pick here, in my opinion, is either Gus Edwards or Ezekiel Elliott. Now, a lot of people hate Zeke. I get it. He is not the same Zeke that he was all those years ago in Dallas, but this is going to be a team that is going to get to the goal line a bunch. They're going to look to jam the ball in, and Tony Pollard couldn't get it done last year. That's why he is now in Tennessee, and Zeke is going to be the lead back in Dallas. Now, he might not be efficient. He might not be effective, but I do know on the 2-yard line, you hand the ball to Zeke, and even in his old age, that shit is automatic. A layup for Ezekiel Elliott. So I like Zeke. Now, since we have Pacheco and Kamara, 2 running backs I feel pretty safe in, we are going to take more of a risk here. The risky pick is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb might not play the first 4 games. Nick Chubb might come back and look like he's fucking Patchy the Pirate running on a peg leg. He could also come back and look pretty normal, look fine, and then at the end of the season, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb is dominant. He's amazing. So this is a very high risk, high reward pick. We're going to go with Nick Chubb because of the team we have built thus far. I understand that Nick Chubb might not even play effectively at all this year. He might just be second fiddle behind Jerome Ford, right? Or maybe he doesn't play at all. Like that's all in the realm of possibilities, but I'm willing to take the risk as we get later into the draft and because of the running back room that we have. Now, I'll tell you, if we didn't have Pacheco and Kamara and I wasn't as confident, then maybe I wouldn't be as likely to take the risk. After Nick Chubb, we see JSN, Ladd McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins, and I want a bad bitch, Jordan Addison, right? Now, it kind of hurts like a butt cheek on a stick because kind of would have rather have had JSN or Addison or even McConkey and then a running back in the next round, but I thought more running backs would go, so I waited. And in turn, I have kind of gotten a little bit shafted. Now, Courtland Sutton is probably the safest pick on the board, the best bet to be reliable all season long. Bo Nix should end up being the starter. Maybe it's the MILF Hunter, Zach Wilson, but I don't think that will end up being the case. Now, Rome Odunze, there's a case for Rome Odunze ending up as the wide receiver 2 deeper into the season, takes over from Keenan Allen in the 2 wide receiver sets. And Rome Odunze, obviously a highly touted prospect out of college, getting Caleb Williams, one of the most talked about college prospects at the quarterback position that we have talked about or heard about in a while. Since Trevor Lawrence, really. So the question here is, do we want to go a little bit safer, a little bit more risky? Now, I think Tyreek Hill and Brandon Ayuk pretty safe. I think there's a bit of risk with George Pickens, mainly because his quarterback is Mr. Unlimited. But I'm going to take that risk here, and we're going to go with Rome Odunze. Now, Odunze is a guy that week number 1, there is no way he's going to be in my lineup. There's no way he's going to be in my lineup because I don't know how much usage he's going to get. But I think he could end up being a league winner, a deep down the stretch of the season guy that is essential towards your fantasy football team being a championship winner. Now, there are going to be people that draft Rome Odunze in the 9th round. Call it quits before the end of the season. Maybe you'll be able to pick him up, but the smart players like you, like me, are going to hold him on our bench and hope he prospers into some beautiful butterfly. After Rome Odunze, we got Zeke, Austin Eckler, Trey Benson, related to Freddie Benson of iCarly, Christian Watson, Courtland Sutton, Xavier Worthy, Gus Bus, Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet, Rico Dowdle, Keon Coleman, Kendre Miller, Brian Thomas Jr., Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, Tyler Algier, Marshawn Lloyd, Antonio Gibson, and Jaleel McLaughlin. I love Jaleel McLaughlin. I would do nasty things to get Jaleel McLaughlin because I think he's going to beat out Javonte Williams and be the number 1 back on Denver. A lot of reports coming out of camp are talking about that, but guess what? I've been talking about that before the fucking reports came out, so seems like I know ball. And then I say this, and then Javonte is going to go out there and rush for fucking 2,000 yards like his name was O.J. Simpson. So we're going to go ahead and draft a running back here, and then we are just going to go balls deep on the wide receiver position. So we're going to go Ty Chandler here. I am an Aaron Jones aficionado. I love Aaron Jones, but what I will note is I think that Ty Chandler is a premier handcuff. We saw Ty Chandler get it done last season. When he was able to play, he had some decent showings, 21 points up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Aaron Jones, not the healthiest guy on earth. Like, we've seen Aaron Jones get hurt in the past. I'm an Aaron Jones guy, but I do think that if Ty Chandler gets the chance to be the starter at points in the season or if Aaron Jones gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, then Ty Chandler could end up being phenomenal for us. Jameson Williams does go, a guy that I was going to target, but I guess I should have seen that coming. Mike Williams, Jameson Williams, George Kittle, Jake Ferguson. This draft is just against the tight end position, right? Looking back, drafting Trey McBride in the, where do we get him? In the 5th round looks a little bit foolish when you could have gotten George Kittle or Jake Ferguson in the 11th round, but in most drafts, that's not going to happen, right? How likely is it in your at-home league that in the 11th round, 2 teams still don't have a tight end? Very unlikely, in my opinion. Very unlikely. And in the 10th round, 4 teams didn't have a tight end, which I think is way out of the ordinary. Sadly, Jameson Williams went. We talked about him in the must-have sleeper video from the other day. I like Jameson Williams a ton because we're seeing Jared Goff as well as Dan Campbell really hype this man up, and I think the fact that he has been able to get that full offseason program work with Goff with the team is going to really pay dividends for him. We drafted Kyler early. We drafted McBride early. So guess what? We're not going to be drafting a backup quarterback or a backup tight end, because when are you ever going to play that backup tight end over the guy you drafted in the 5th round or over the quarterback you drafted early? The answer is going to be very likely, unless they're hurt, probably never. Right? Like, unless Trey McBride has this great year last season and that now he just sucks cock, like, what are the odds? Like, if that happened, sure. But you're not betting on that happening when you drafted him, right? So now we are up on the clock here. Jacoby Myers, Curtis Samuel, Josh Downs, Romeo Dobbs, Brandon Cooks, Jerry Jeudy. We've seen some potentially positive things about Jahan Dotson, but of course, Fantasy Pros doesn't have any of that information, because why would they, right? Why would they have that information for you to read? Fuck you, basically, is what they just said to me. I was looking to read that, but it is what it is. We haven't taken Curtis Samuel once, so we're going to do it here. Captain Spock, me matey. I don't know why the fuck I said me matey. Good friend, great commenter in the comment section. Always see Captain Spock. Very nice guy. Shout out to Spock. He hates Curtis Samuel, and I kind of hate him in a way too, right? He's this guy that he's like Houdini, right? He'll show up for a couple of games in a row where he goes absolutely nuclear, and then what he does is he does his disappearing act. Vamonos, he vanishes. Then he'll come back a couple weeks later and then vanish again. In Buffalo, things could set up where Curtis Samuel is the wide receiver 1. He's a guy that has some rushing upside if you hand him the ball. Again, I'm not going to sit here and get down on my knees and just give him the gawk 9,000 special, because I don't even like Curtis Samuel that much. But I will acknowledge the upside. And again, the later you get in drafts, the more risks you should be willing to take. So we're going to go ahead and draft Curtis Samuel here. So that will leave us with a squad that just has one more pick, and then our kicker and defense. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs. That is Nick Chubb, Ty Chandler, Pacheco, and Kamara. Receivers are Tyreek, Ayuk, Pickens, Adunze, and Curtis Samuel. I think we're going to go with another running back here and just hunt for some upside. I think that Keaton Mitchell will end up as the RB2 behind Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the workhorse, obviously, but if he was to get hurt, I liked what I saw to Keaton Mitchell last year. I like the upside that he possesses, so that is who we are going to be going with here. If you wanted to go wide receiver, I would tell you I'd probably go Jahan Dotson or Joshua Palmer. So here we're going to go with Keaton Mitchell. It's not even a guarantee that Keaton Mitchell's ready to go, though, by week number 1. So after we went ahead and drafted Keaton Mitchell, we see J.K. Dobbins, Damian Pierce, then a couple of defenses. Now, the key to drafting defense is by drafting a defense that's playing up against a not-so-hot opponent in week number 1. Now, if you look at the games for 2024, should be able to see somewhere because I pulled them up last time. Outlook. Why would it show us? Why would it show us? You can't hit 2024. So basically, I know the 49ers for sure are playing up against the Jets. That is not the ideal defense to draft, even though Rodgers is just not showing up right now. Then again, the Jets going up against the 49ers. No bueno. Off the top of my head, I don't remember who all these teams are playing because I don't know why, because it's fucking June and I don't need to remember that just yet. But I do wish it would show us this. And now someone in the comments will be like, Nick, all you had to do was click this, you dumbass, and you would have been able to see it. So we're going to draft the 49ers. But again, that's not technically what we would actually do. We'd be looking to draft a defense up against a not-so-hot opponent in week 1. And then after week 1, if, say, the defense you pick has a harder opponent week 2, you cut them, you add a new defense. I make videos on streaming defenses every single week. So make sure you're subscribed at least for that, right? If you just want help streaming your defenses, I can at least do that for you. So a bunch of kickers, a bunch of defenses come off the board. And then we're going to go with the kicker. And we are going to go with Dicker, the kicker of the not the San Francisco 49ers, of the Los Angeles Chargers. You can go with Evan McPherson if you want, but we just went with Dicker, the kicker, because it's a little bit funny. Shout out to my boy, my old bitch lame, but my young Hoku on one pick before us. We got an 83 out of 100. To me, this is a 100 out of 100 team. Jeff's kiss, Manu Fweek. Let me know what you guys thought about this team in the comment section. To recap, our team is Kyler Murray, Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Trey McBride, George Pickens, the 49ers, Cameron Dicker, Nick Chubb, Adunze, Chandler, Samuel Keat Mitchell. If I left my draft with this team, I would be leaving my draft not only with 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, but also with a Chubb in my pants. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Make sure you check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you guys all so much. We'll be back tomorrow with another banger of a video. And again, underdog streams coming soon. Love you guys. Have a great one. And as always, good boy.